It has long since been believed that the first yo-yos originated from Greece due to these images appearing, these ancient artifacts, which were later confirmed to simply be bobbins. If you don't know what a bobbin is, it's a spool for thread, not the main point. As it turns out, the yo-yo is most likely Oriental in origin, coming from around 1000 BC. The beginning of yo-yo history is very sparse and loose and very disjointed. It started out in most likely China, made out of clay and a children's toy. In fact, the second oldest children. Now, you may have heard once upon a time that the yo yo is a weapon of ancient, powerful Filipino warriors. This is false. This is just something an ad campaign of Duncan made up to make it sound cool and to sell it to boys. And it worked. And the myth sticks around to this day. Children's toy after the doll. It had a couple of successor toys, primarily the Diablo, and it spread around. It even hit Europe, and in fact, Napoleon played with a clay yo yo within his childhood. Yo yo history doesn't really pick up and get interesting until it hits America in the 1900s. Things really pick up when they reach America. But for some context, the yo yo remained a popular toy in both Eastern Europe and in the Philippines, in which the name the yo yo originates, meaning come, come. And so, to set the stage, a Filipino immigrant by the name of Pedro Flores is on his lunch break at his job at the Southern California Hotel. And on his lunch break, he starts playing with his yo yo, which draws a crowd as to the American populace, the yo yo was something new. They've never seen it before. And so he got plenty of tips and a large audience on his breaks for playing with his yo yo and doing tricks. This gave him the idea to start a toy company to manufacture his yo yos. This was the start of the Duncan Toy Company, which made him quite successful and rich, but it came under hard times as he was uh, he was known to sue a lot of people over copyright and his trademark yo-yo. This led him into simply selling off his business and living on rich. This is pretty much where things stayed. The yo-yo, which today would be called a Type 1 yo-yo, was simply two halves in the classical shape with a wooden dowel or metal dowel in the middle. It went up and went back down. It did not sleep, it did not stay down. That was until 1990 when rival toy company Kuhn made the SB2 yo yo, which is now generally referred to as a Type 2 yo yo. The difference being it has a bearing in the middle, a ball bearing. And so when you threw it, it could stay down and it would simply come back up at a tug. The next type of yo yo made, typically called a Type 3, would be an unresponsive yo yo. Now, technically, the first unresponsive yo yo was the Duncan Imperial. And the Duncan Imperial is quite possibly one of the worst yo yos ever made. We'll talk more on that when we get into yo yo shapes. Now, the difference between an unresponsive yo yo and a responsive yo yo is an unresponsive yo yo does not come back up when tugged. These really gained popularity at the turn of the century because there's more tricks you can do with an unresponsive yo yo and they spin longer. Problem was, at the beginning, nobody knew actually how to bring them back. That was until they copied off of off string yo, which is a type of yo yo which is not connected to the string, which was created around the same time in 2001. And what they discovered was the bind, a trick to simply return the yo-yo at a moment's notice. This gives a great segue into the Austrian yo-yos themselves. Made at the turn of the century, 2001, there is a return of the yo-yo's long-lost cousin, the Diablo, but a lot smaller and without the sticks. It was a yo-yo that is quite a bit larger than your regular yo-yo, and as the name suggests, not on the string. The early 2000s was a great period of innovation for the yo-yo. Because that's not the only thing that came out that year. The next great innovation for the yo-yo. Now, the Diablo is what's known as it's its own thing, but the off-string yo-yo is what's called the Type 4. In that same year, the Type 5 came out, also made by Duncan, which was the counterweight yo-yo, in which it had a dice or another counterweight at the end instead of a finger around, instead of a loop around your finger that you would use it to counterbalance and do tricks with. The controversial thing about the Duncan freehand, the yo-yo made by Duncan to be the first counterweight, is that it was patented. So nobody else could make one until the year 2020, as it was made on April 28th, 2000. Bloopers. Now, while I'm done talking about the types of yo-yos, I feel I should start talking about the shape, which is quite important. To your left, you'll see the classical shape. That's what they originated as. Nice and smooth, makes catches kind of hard, but nothing really wrong with it. In the middle, you find the innovation of Duncan, the best yo-yo shape, the butterfly. Due to its wide wing-like shape, it makes catches and flying trapeze, really any string trick, a lot easier because you have so much more margin for error, as it will just simply slip in due to the wide area. And to the left, you'll see the worst shape. It is so bad, there are competitions dedicated to learning tricks with it, just because how hard, how impractical it is, due to its tiny slit shape. It is an embarrassment that this is the first unresponsive yo-yo. I used to have one of these. I am really good with a yo-yo. I've only been able to make it come back up or do really any trick with it like twice. It is a piece of junk. After this great development of the Type 5 yo-yos, yo-yos largely remained stagnant for the next 20 years. There were no great innovations. There were new tricks, of course, but nothing that really blew up or shook the way we made yo-yos. That was until 2021, when a young man invented the trick known as DNA that blew up the internet, blew up on TikTok, as he had designed custom yo-yos with a special dimple to help in finger spinning. This had led to a boom of finger spin tricks, and every yo-yo made after the 2021 having a dimple in the middle simply to facilitate the trick everyone knows and loves these days, DNA. Now that brings us to the present, in which yoing is really only a hobby for hobbyists and is not in the pop culture anymore. But some say it will come back. Who knows? God willing, I hope so. I'd like to take this moment to thank my sources, the Duncan Toy Museum, yotricks.com, and the great work of author, yo-yo collector, and yo-yo historian Gary Stein.